Banks and credit unions have a problem. Their outdated technology can't keep up. Not with the engaging experiences of big tech and challenger banks, or the speed of new fintech services. And especially not with growing customer expectations. So financial institutions can either lose their customers to better digital players, or they can upgrade. And that's where we come in. The Backbase engagement banking platform is the evolution of the digital banking experience. With the power of one platform, you can start small, then grow big across all channels and business lines. You can increase conversions during onboarding and product applications, deepen customer loyalty and engagement, partner with the finest fintechs, and above all, improve life for customers and also employees. With turnkey apps plus accelerators to build your own, the platform can be tailored to the unique needs of any sized bank or credit union, like the hundreds around the world that we're powering today. This only scratches the surface of what Backbase can do for you. To learn more or speak to us, visit backbase.com.
Hello. Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Banking of Future series, an initiative of African Banker magazine in partnership with Backbase. My name is Pedro, and I'll be your moderator for the next 45 minutes or so, as we try to answer a very concrete but perhaps very difficult question, which is the banking sector changing forever or not? We found this to be a very timely way to organize this conversation. We know there's been sort of a year since the beginning of the pandemic. We know as well that banks throughout the continent just reported their annual results. So we'll be using some of this data and we'll be using some of these experiences from last year to try and answer this question and hopefully some others that you might have. Before introducing the panel, you can have sort of, please ask all your questions. You have sort of the chat right next to you on your right-hand side, I believe. Please make sure that you to join the conversation, say hello, and if you have any questions, hopefully we'll be able to have the time to answer those. With no further ado, I would like to introduce you to our guest today. We have João Figueiredo, which is the CEO of Moza Bank from Mozambique. We have Cornel Dixon, which is the head of Africa for Backbase. And we have straight from the airport in DRC, we have Lanre Bamisebi, which is a group director at Equity Bank. Access Bank will be joining us very shortly. However, we thought that it would be important to start on time. We'll start the conversation, and then Daniel, which is the Chief Technology Officer of Access Bank, will be joining us in a minute and will be able to join this conversation. Right, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for finding the time. And since we only have 45 minutes, I would like to start the conversation. João, I'm gonna start with you. I believe it was last week on the 20th of April that Moza reported the annual results for 2020. What great results there were. I believe sort of for the first time the bank was able to break even as well as report profits, even though the year of 2020 was a very difficult year. So my question is very simple: how did you manage to do that, knowing the difficulties that the banking sector faced last year?
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Pedro. First of all, let me thank you for this opportunity for myself and for my bank to be here on this conference. It was really an honor for us. And for the few of you that don't know, I'm not too much familiar with the financial system in Mozambique. Let me just to tell you, our financial system is not that big. We have around 17 banks. They are small banks. We have 5 big banks, Moza is one of these 5 big banks. It was a startup operation. Banco opened its doors in 2008, so a few years ago. It grew very well. It's a universal and retailing bank. We do a little bit of corporate finance and investment banking also. But in 2015, unfortunately, we got some problems on our balance sheet, and we have some equity problems, and the central bank make an intervention. So in 2016, that's when myself and my team had been invited to handle the bank and to try to recover the bank. So after a deep process of restructuring, the equity restructuring, organizational restructuring, operational restructuring, we restart to win the trust from the market. You know, when a bank have suffer an intervention, it's a little bit difficult. There is a sentimental feeling that comes with the customers. They feel afraid to work with this bank. So the first thing that we have to do in 2016, it was to tell to our customers, please trust in this bank. And it was a funny thing because, you know, finally we have a new investor, and he's a Mozambican investor. So 2 interesting things. This is nowadays the only native bank in Mozambique, the only bank which the shareholders are real Mozambican shareholders. So it's a pension funds from the central bank that is investing in the bank. We have a foreign partner, which is a RISE, which is an equity fund from Rabobank, FMO, and North Fund that have an equity of 30%, share of 30% of our bank. And from 2016-17, we start to work in order to recover the bank. Finally, in 2020, as you just mentioned, we reached the break-even, which is fantastic on a year that we got a lot of difficulties. And it's not only because the pandemic that we are suffering, everybody's suffering anyway, but also because we still have a few problems in our country that create a little bit more difficult for the banks, normally for any bank, but particularly for the banks that are on a process to recover as Mozambique. We have a war in the north of the country. We had some floods and some cyclones problems on 2019, Idai and Kenneth, that destroy a lot of infrastructure from our economy. So it was a very interesting process. I'm quite happy because in 3 years and a half, we did recover from this situation. So the secret is only pick up the people, work with your people. We didn't recruit anybody from outside. We work with the people that been in the bank. So I'm quite happy to tell you, yes, we reached this point in 2020.
Congratulations! I think that is a very important step for Moza, especially in such conditions. And I guess now trying to bring it into the conversation for today and looking at 2020, what in terms of digital transformation, what do you think were the key investments that sort of allow you to serve your clients in Mozambique better? Knowing, for example, that branches across the country were closed, knowing that people had to stay at home, how did you navigate those issues and to ensure that at the end of the day you were able to serve your clients as well as possible?
I tell you what, this process of digitalization and transformation, it's an ongoing process. That it started before. I would say that the pandemic just come to help to accelerate this process, because the process already started before. I can tell you that Mozambique was the first bank that in 2017 opened the first digital branch in the country. So it's something that it's real new for our country. It's a branch where our customers can go and to learn how to work with a digital way with the Bank. So, but this process already started. I would say the process of transformation in banking in Mozambique started in, let's say, 90s, when we introduced the ATM machines, the credit card, debit cards, when we introduced the POS and so on. Nowadays, we are on the second level of this transformation. We are now can see, working with new kind of products, new kind of technology. We are working on a database on a very strong way in order to create our products and services. I tell you, the digitalization is a process that we have to take advantage. But for me, the way that we see our bank, it's and the future in banking is on a very peculiar way. I mentioned this on our previous conversation that for us, what is important, and we wrote this in our DNA, it's to keep a relationship bank. We consider ourselves a relationship bank because technology, digitalization, transformation will be the same for everybody. Nobody can live without technology. Nobody can live without equity. Equity will be available in the market, technology also. So the way that you will make the difference in banking in future will be the way that you will create your relationship with your customer. How deep will you go to know your customer? How deep you go to understand their needs? How deep you go to tailor-make the solutions for them? So that's the way that we see how digitalization and transformation goes together with our DNA, which is a relationship bank.
Fantastic, João. Thank you very much. I think I'll now jump into to Lanre. Lanre, he's currently in DRC. Equity just opened their offices in DRC, and Lanre is joining us from there. Thank you very much for finding the time. Lanre, touching on these issues of building trust through digital channels and through digital processes. What is the experience of Equity Bank, knowing that Equity Bank is an organization that heavily invested on agency banking and branches throughout the years? But how do you now do that jump into sort of a digital first approach within the organization? What does your experience tells us, Lanre?
All right, thank you very much, Pedro, and the other panel members. I'm honored to be in your midst this morning. Like Pedro mentioned, I'm on my way to DRC from Nairobi. So I have to do this at the lounge. So excuse me, the network is a little bit poor. We just acquired the bank in DRC, in the second largest bank, BCDC, which translates to Democratic Congo Commercial Bank. We acquired it, and we were able to do the integration in almost during COVID. We did the integration in 2 months, which is like the fastest I've done in my career actually. So in terms of how COVID has how we were affected by COVID, for starters, we registered a 51% increase in our balance sheet. For us, it was like we had already started the digitalization process before COVID. So it was almost like we already built the bridge, almost like we foresaw it somehow. So what COVID just did was to accelerate some of the things we're doing. So with COVID, we're already doing a lot of digitalization. We've already done a couple of investments around omni-channel microservices. We've done a lot of investment in moving some of those legacy systems to SOA, service-oriented architecture. Because I've realized that bank has always been complaining that one of the reasons why banks can't move as fast as fintech is because of legacy. So what we did was to hone our legacy and try and translate them into better solutions that are very agile and highly API driven. So we did that. So that caught us during the COVID period. And what that did was we needed to just accelerate the projects that we're doing so that we can reach our customers. We have about 14.2 million customers. So you can imagine, and in Africa, where most of them like the feel of the branch, and all of a sudden they don't want to come to the branch again. So we had to make sure we had touch points to most of them. And the good thing is we have what we call the MVNO. I think we are the only bank that runs an MVNO in the whole of Africa. That means we use your SIM card, your telco SIM card to do transactions. So we quickly, revamped that. So most of our customers don't need to come to the branch. They can do most of their transactions using their SIM card. Then, of course, we leverage more on the USSD and those other forms of banking to make sure that our customers, if they don't want to come to the branch, because we close almost all our branches, and then there was we had a growth. Customer deposit grew by 53%. Our asset became about 1 billion. So it was we leveraged, not we were able to position ourselves for COVID. And what we did was areas where we needed 3 staffs, we automatically recruited about 6 or 7 to make sure that we continue to move and increase the momentum. So what COVID did was some people that would normally will have hesitated to move from brick and mortar to digital world. It actually forced them to do that. So for us, we were able to leverage on some of the advantages that if people were not coming to the office, they don't want to go to the branches, and then for the branches, immediately after COVID, almost 80% of the workforce were working from home. And up until today, I've been to the office maybe 6 or 7 times this year. And the whole of 2020, maybe I was in the office maybe 5-7 times the whole year. So we've been able to do this, and I don't think it's going to change. I think this is the new norm. Thank you for the question.
Lanre, thank you very much. I think I'm going to just bring a bit of context, perhaps, for the people watching us today. I was doing some research on your latest financial reports, and within your report, it says that digitization has enabled 98% of all the group transactions to happen outside the branches, with 85% of transactions being on mobile or internet banking. So that comes from your annual report from 2020. So that's sort of the reality. And the 98%, it's a big number. So just for us to understand, going forward, do you think that this will just become the norm? Or do you think that brick and mortar branches will still become a core part of your organization? I think you have to unmute, Lanre.
Sorry, before COVID started, we did a little bit of rebranding. And if you realize that we deliberately removed the word bank from the logo, so we are actually equity now. So we are a digital organization. We consider ourselves a big tech company. So we changed our structure to align with that. So we have product-based structure right now, unlike the normal structure that you would have. And then in terms of our aspirations, we are looking to have about 100 million customers in the next 4 years. And when we look at it now, the way we've moved almost all the customers, 90% of them, like you mentioned, to the digital platform, we are thinking that we might be able to do that even before 4 years. And that's one of the other things we are doing, is doing some acquisition. That's why we are in DLC. That's why I'm in DLC right now. We are also trying to go into some other countries in West Africa. And also, most of those countries will probably not be going as a bank, but as a digital led operator. So for us, it is a strategy. This strategy wasn't done because of COVID. We only had started doing about 2 years ago. Just COVID just to accelerate the things that we needed to do. And like you mentioned, we were able to get the 98 million customers. 19% of our customers moved to the digital platform because we did a lot of revamping around our structures. We moved some of our legacy systems to better systems. We invested in tools that make it easy for us to, and we do a lot around data. I think for an organization of our size, the data scientists that we have about 16 of them. Our data group is very large, so we are doing a lot of around data mining and artificial intelligence. So to be able to understand our customers' behavior and do their profiling and do personalization backing for them. And we also do a lot of fraud management using machine learning. So for us, we can't go back on this. 90% of our customers are digital, so they transact every minute of the day. So we just continue to scale. to make sure that we can accommodate all our customers. Like I mentioned, the target is 100 million customers in the next 4 years. So yeah, we are on the right trajectory to do that. Thank you, Pedro.
Thank you, Larry. Let me go to Daniel now from Access Bank. Daniel, can you hear us? I know there were a few technical issues before, but I think you are online now. How are you, Daniel? Good morning. And I'm not sure if you are muted or not, but I think
yes. Good morning, Pedro. I don't know if you can hear me clearly now.
Absolutely, Daniel. Thank you very much. Daniel, maybe one question. Lanre just said that Equity Bank rebranded and he's not Equity Bank anymore, but he's Equity Group. Will Access Bank rebrand as well as Access Group, or are you still bank first and a technology player second?
All right. Good morning, Pedro. Good morning, panelists, and my good friend Lanre. Good morning. Larry and I have been friends for some years now, so so it's a very good thing that Equity is going on a very good strategy to be a big tech. But as a bank, we have a different aspiration, and we have a different dream. Today, we are probably the biggest bank on the continent by customer base. I mean, first of all, I will start from who we are. Access Bank at the moment has about 47 million customers. 47 million customers is probably almost a quarter of the entire Nigeria, which is probably the biggest and the most populous Black nation in the world today. And our aspiration is to bank the entire African continent, at least 50% of African continent in the next 5 years. So we have a total different aspiration. We are a bank and will remain a bank that is digitally led. We want to do banking that is purely based on digital and technology. So our aspiration, we are moving to an old core structure where we are going to have a tech company, we are going to have payment, we are going to have a whole lot of suite of products. So to answer your question, we're not going to change, we're not going to take our bank from Access Bank. Our mission is to be the world's most respected African bank in the world. And for that vision, we will move back from the name Access Bank. But we are probably going to keep our digital transformation lights on, which we started like 5 years ago. And it's actually impacted in our results in 2020. I mean, 2020, we experienced a huge growth. I mean, during the lockdown, from 37 million customers to 47 million customers is huge. And if you look at our profitability in terms of jump, we moved by over 20% in profitability. Our assets went up by over 21%. So we're not going to change the winning structure. We're not going to change the winning formula. We're going to remain a bank, and we're going to keep to our vision of being the world's most respected African bank. But we are probably going to be digitally led. When I say digitally led, our customers are going to be digitally served. Our staff are going to be operate in a digital structure. If you look at us, we have a data science team that is about 70 resources. That is a huge number. So we are going to leverage a lot of around analytics. We have built a lot of capacities around artificial intelligence. So at the moment, we have freed up almost over 100 staff from our settlements team, and everything is being done by robotics. So our DNA is just a bank that is digitally led. So we're not going to change that. We're not going to take a bank from that.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And actually, my second question, you already touched on it, and you were saying how you have innovation teams within the bank that help you with the whole digital transformation process. And how does that work exactly? Do you try and work with sort of ecosystem partners as well outside the bank to help you leverage new technologies, or do you try predominantly and grow in-house to work and deliver on your digital platforms and digital services?
Okay. When you talk about digital innovation, it's always an interesting discussion for us in Access. So first of all, by key performance indices of our staff, every staff must innovate. So that's the first principle. So we built innovation as a core value of the bank. So for a staff to move from one level to the other, you must have done an innovation, probably a process optimization or whatever. I'm going to start from that simple understanding. Then we are the only bank that invested so much in the ecosystem. I'm sure today we have Flutterwave. Flutterwave is about $1 billion company. Flutterwave, for your information, spin out from our fintech arm, which I head the Africa Fintech Foundry. So Africa Fintech Foundry is an arm of the bank that looks for innovation from outside of the bank, bring it into the bank to align with the bank's strategy. So when it talks about our digital innovation, the first principle is that we innovate internally. That's number one. Then we also look at innovation from the ecosystem. We work with the ecosystem, startups, innovators, different kind of hubs across the world to look for what kind of innovation we can bring it into our bank. I will give a very good example. We are the only bank that have innovated something we call face payment. So we are the only bank in Nigeria that offers a facial payment solution, whereby if you come into our branch, you don't need to come with anything. It's just your face. We authenticate you and we know who you are. And then we've recorded zero fraud. Then some of our merchants that we work with, I mean, when I say merchants, we have some merchants in the country where we acquire their transaction. We've deployed a face payment solution into their stores where some of our customers can go in there and make payment. That's probably very transformational in terms of innovation. Probably the only place we've seen that is in China. And I know that's pretty big in China. So that was totally innovated internally in the bank. But from an external innovation perspective, we've seen how a lot of global companies have done tremendous things with artificial intelligence. So we've brought in a robotics process automation from outside into the bank. So that was an acquired technology that has helped the bank manage and also process all the settlement transactions. And maybe in the last 1 year, the robotics has processed well over 50 million transactions without human intervention. So that is an innovation that has come from outside. So then internally too, we are the only bank that has built a loan disbursement system that you get your loan in less than 5 seconds. You apply for your loan and you get it disbursed to your account in 5 seconds. That was an innovation that was built in the bank. No external input company, that it was built by the developers of the bank. So when you look at it in terms of our overall operations, we've decided the kind of innovation we want to adopt. Some internally developed, some we get from the ecosystem. And we've seen a few startups that have innovated around data. There's a company called Opera. It's an innovation around data. And we said, okay, you have a fantastic innovation. Come and partner with us, and we can leverage on your data analytics to give out loans to non-access bank customers. So that's an innovation we pick from outside. So our strategy goes with the opportunity we see. If it's internal, we innovate internally. From external, we pick it up. But our structure as a bank, we have put up a structure to help us get innovation internally and externally. I head the Africa Fintech Foundry. Africa Fintech Foundry, it's an external innovation sourcing arm of the bank and looks for innovation from outside, from ecosystem, where we also organize conferences and bring in world leaders in terms of innovation.
Fantastic. Very, very, very interesting, Daniel. Thank you very much. I'm going to Cornel now, because I think, Daniel, you touch upon some very interesting topics that I'm going to ask Cornel as well. Cornel, as head of Backbase, you've championed, we call, I guess, the engagement banking platform. Tell us a bit more about that, and how do you see banks benefiting from this new way of banking and this new way of sort of organizing their own strategy?
Thanks for the question, Pedro. I think, also big thanks to the fellow panelists here for sharing their views and what's happening in their respective markets. Obviously, as we know, Africa is a very diverse continent. I think what works necessarily in one regional country can't always be 100% copied in another, which makes things a little bit more exciting. I do think, nevertheless, from our viewpoint, having worked not just in Africa but across the globe, you do see quite a lot of very similar patterns. And I think the question of, is the banking sector changing forever? The banking sector has always changed. I don't think it's ever stood still for the 1,000+ years that it's been around in one form, shape, or manner. But I think there's an inflection point today which does provide something that we haven't actually seen before, and that comes really to your point about how we actually engage with customers. I see a lot of banks also today. So Daniel, Lanre, also from your side, talking about becoming a technology company. that's a very important mindset. Likewise, João, from your side, thinking about how we can best serve the customer relationship in a digital manner. But I can say that running a bank is very difficult, but also running a technology is very difficult. And running both at the same time, that's something that I see a lot of banks that might not be in a privileged position like some of the panelists are. I really see them actually struggling like that in continent. It might be because they don't have the right skill sets, they don't have the right resources in country, and they have to ship in very expensive ones from Europe or America or whatever it might be. So I really see that on the one hand, it's really about cleaning up the infrastructure side. That's something that just needs to happen. And if that doesn't happen, I really see, much like Intel today has, if everybody's looking at the chip market, Intel has really lagged behind ARM, NVIDIA, and even Apple nowadays. And that will continue to happen with banks that simply just don't do the required, let's say, spring cleaning. But the other portion about the more deep-rooted changes that are going to come through, I really see that financial services, whether it's banking, insurance, money movement, whatever it might be, there's a lot of focus on payments, and that's great. But that's just a tool, essentially, right? At least that's how I, as a customer, see it. The biggest thing that I do see happening in the banking sector and having the most immediate impact is how banks move from IYC, which is identifying their customers. We call it KYC today, but it's not. It's IYC. We look at the passport, we look at the validation and everything like that of where they live, but that doesn't mean we actually know them. And the banks that actually know their customers, know their preferences, what languages they like to speak, where they shop, do they have pets? Do they? I have a dog. I buy dog food, but my bank never tells me, hey, here's a voucher for dog food from your favorite shop, to help you, a rewards program. How you really use that data and how you meaningfully engage with the end user on the other side of that device, that's the game changer. And the ones that get it right, they're the ones that will succeed. That can be a little bit difficult in certain countries because of infrastructure, because of things like financial inclusion. So I do see that a lot of banks have an additional challenge, which is also not just to do things in a digital way, which I think is a moot point whether or not digital will stay, but to also help uplift a lot of the population along the way. I think that is where banking will actually change not just their sector, but also the lives of a lot of people on the continent.
Cornel, you touched on something very interesting, which is indeed how the KYC and how to really know your custom. And I guess when you have a branch and the branch manager is very knows you very well and knows your family and perhaps knows your kids, it is perhaps easier to create trust and empathy with your client because you can see the person. How do you build that trust if your multiple touch points are digital ones? How can you build that trust over a mobile app, for example, or over your or iPad or laptop?
It's a good question. It's not always an easy one to get right. 100 years ago, for example, you would go into a branch and they would maybe know you by name, right? They'd know you, Pedro. That the branch manager maybe knew your dad or your family. They know where you lived. They probably sold you the house. And you go ask for a loan, and maybe your credit rating wasn't particularly great, but they knew that you were good for it because you had a system to support you, a family network, whatever it might be. In today's digital world, I think the first point is today a lot of banks, and it's been something that we've seen for many years, they need to clean up basically the legacy and the silo infrastructure that they have. It was good when it was around, but now when you need to share data very easily to be able to pick up on those key moments and then actually engage with an end user, that needs to be cleaned. The other is also just about how you communicate in a human way through digital. And that means that some people, myself, I would be quite happy with a nice push notification, for example, that says, hey, Cornel, what's going on? Maybe I'm stuck on a page for a long time and I get a little pop-up that says, hey, you're still on here. Is everything okay? Other people might prefer live chat. They might actually want to speak to a human, right? They don't want to speak to a text box. So pinpointing people's preferences, whether through actually asking them, and that's what a lot of banks don't actually do today. They don't ask their customers what they want and how they want to bank. So they just slap a mobile app. Here's your money payment. Here's your money movement, your mobile payments. Off you go. And that's a great step. It needs to be done. The next step after that is to ask how. Right? How do you want to send your money? How do you want us to engage with you? And to actually ask those questions. And by doing that, that's where you can actually, listen to the voice of the customer and craft something that actually engages with them. And from our side, that's really where we've seen, the software development that we've been putting in through our research and development on the platform has really been on nailing that part of not just having a delightful experience when it comes to, the app you download, but how, financial institutions then meaningfully interact with the end users.
Very, very interesting, because I'm seeing João on the corner, because I think we were having sort of a similar conversation, João, and last week when we were preparing for this event. And let me try and ask you, as I think Cornel touched upon, sort of what is banking as a service, perhaps instead of just having products, you have sort of an array, an engagement platform that provides service to your customers. And from your perspective, João, I guess on the strategy side of things, how do you see this banking as a service being implemented in Mozambique going forward? What are sort of your priorities, and how do you create that trust that Cornel was just sort of describing? I think you have to unmute, João.
All right, thank you. Once again, let me put the things on this way. First of all, it depends what kind of segment we are talking about. What mass market, the way that I'm dealing with the technology, it's the communication way that I touch the people. But again, as Cornel mentioned, I have to work my database in order, with this information, to design the right products, the right services to my customers that are on the mass market. On the mass market, I cannot deal with one by one. It's very difficult. So the key point on mass market segment is to work on your database and design the right products and the right service for your customer, and use the platform to communicate with them. When we're talking about affluent and corporate, so it becomes a little bit different. I think then you have to use this in terms of the sector to understand a little bit better what are the instruments that you have around the world to make available for your customers. What kind of financial instruments, what kind of design you can do it for him. But, affluent, it needs a lot of proximity in terms of relationship. You cannot, technology will be an instrument for you to deal. For me, again, I will keep my DNA, as I mentioned before, which means individual people are the focus of my mind in terms of culture for my bank. And then we use the technology to support. Let me just to give an example. In Mozambique, we have 32 million people. Our population, total population, 32 million. Only 30% of the adults of our population are working with the bank. But today, we have more than 50% of our total population working with mobile phone. So you can see from this gap, the huge opportunity that I have to grow my customer base. Just to tell you, to add something to this example, let me tell you that internet users are around 21% in our country. And it grows at a rate of 25% a year, which means that every single year I have 1.4 million new internet users that can be new potential people to bankerize by myself. So this is the change game. It's how to pick up this technology and bring it inside of the bank to use. Of course, I'm working now with the 3 mobile companies that we have working in our country, Mcash, M-Pesa. We have there are 3 of them. So, for instance, just to give an example, I think in 2 or 3 weeks' time, we will launch a new product through M-Pesa, which will allow us to finance around 5 million people that nowadays are not working with the bank. Can you imagine people living on the countryside? They never been in touch with the bank, but they work with the mobile phones. So those 5 million people can borrow money through M-Pesa, and we will provide this money. That's what I'm saying. So we have to use technology, keeping your culture, your DNA, but you have to use the technology to serve this technology, to serve this, your culture.
Very interesting issue. I think I would like to actually include the Lanre on a conversation here, just to try and understand, in terms of equities perspective, how do you, João, touch upon sort of the banking the unbanked and sort of the opportunity that there still is across the continent? And I was reading through some of the questions, and one of the question was in terms of your how do you do your customer onboarding within equity, and how do you perhaps touch these people that still do not have access to banking services and still do not have access to banking products, and how this technology can be a game changer here as well? What is your experience, Lanre?
All right. Thank you very much, Pedro. I think as compared to maybe West Africa, Kenya, for example, has the largest banking inclusion, in Africa, right? So most of the people there are banked, which by itself has its own dynamics actually. But we, like you mentioned, 98% of our customers are digital. So that means if you look at the banking inclusion for the country as a whole, is very high. It could be almost as high as what we have in the UK and the US. And like João was saying, with things like M-Pesa, it also makes it very easy for people to do a lot of digital transactions. And East Africa generally, it's it has a lot of digital inclusion going on, and so banking inclusion is very high. So what that means is we don't have okay, it's difficult to bank those who are really in the far north or the far areas. And so what we do with those ones is that they just use what we call Equitel. Now, Equitel is a mobile innovation whereby we do mobile banking as a bank. So basically, we use the SIM card to do transactions, and we have loads of volume coming from there. So you see, these guys trust the service so much that they do most of the transaction on it. They transfer to their vendors, their customers, using that same model. But going to other areas like Nigeria that I'm in right now, where we don't have that much bank inclusion, right? So what we try to do is to make sure that your mobile app, once you have a mobile app, again, if you look at the network penetration, they are probably about 75%. So from where we sit, we will leverage on the telco to also use mobile. So there's going to be a lot of synergy or partnership with telco companies to see how we can leverage the telecommunications to do banking. Because if you decide to go really on mobile alone, you realize that with mobile alone, most of the guys don't have internet. Even though internet is coming up, most of the people still use the feature phones, and with the same card, mobile transfer they can use their mobile phone to make transactions, even though it's a feature phone. What we also do in some cases is actually give our customers mobile phone, right? Perhaps give them the opportunity to be able to take a loan at a very minimal interest, to get upgrade their phone so that they can use the mobile service. And we also leverage a lot around the USSD. The USSD is also, it works very well on feature phone as well. So we leverage on that to be able to get most of our customers on board on the digital platform. I think that's pretty much it, Pedro.
Before going back to you, Lanre, I wanted to ask Daniel, because we have a couple of questions here directed to at Access Bank as well. And Daniel, I was just curious to know, first of all, how, and something that both Cornel and João were mentioning on, how do you build trust when you don't have an open branch where your clients cannot go to the branch? How do you build that trust digitally? What's your experience as Access Bank, and how do you directly deal with your client through all these digital channels?
Pedro, I'm not sure I heard you clearly. Probably internet. Could you just repeat the question again?
Yes, so I wanted to understand how do you build the trust with your clients if the branch is closed and your clients need to use a digital channel like a phone or a mobile app?
Okay. That's a very interesting question. And as a bank, we went on a journey of customer experience transformation about a year ago, and we understand the emotional part of banking, and which is what Cornel was trying to say. There was some years where customers would walk into the branch manager knows the name of the customer, knows where the customer lives, offer the customer coffee, and that emotional part of it is very important. But as you are transiting from the physical brick and mortar branches to digital channels, you must be able to create the emotional connection on the digital platform. So the first thing we did in our digital transformation is we want to give our digital platform to the customers and it becomes your own. How do you want your mobile app to look? So we never gave customers, oh, it must be like this. This must be the color. So we looked at the subtle way, and I will give you a very simple statistics. As a bank, we met with Diamond Bank. Diamond Bank used to be one of the big banks in Nigeria, and which actually helped the banks to grow the number of customers. But we had different culture. The customers of Diamond Bank and the customers of Access Bank, they have different expectations, and it was so minute to the level of color. Oh, Diamond customers prefer the lemon gray, Access customers prefer the blue. So what we did is that we give out a platform to the customers where you have access to the platform to change it and make it look like the way you want it. That's in terms of look and feel. In terms of the services, what service do you like to use? How do you want to access these services? Do you want it to be a one-click service? Do you want to go straight in there? We gave the system, we gave the platform where everybody can customize their system. So from customer experience perspective, we've done a research and we saw the feedback. It was a fantastic feedback from a lot of customers. The second part of it, which is very important, is stability. When you want to win the trust of customers, they must be sure that it works. You don't want to go to the platform and the platform is down today, you're not sure it's not going to work. We put in so much investment in monitoring, in support to be sure all our platforms are running 99.9%. We can easily tell you that in an unlikely event, the way when you get on a plane and they tell you that in an unlikely event there's a crisis. So that's the level we actually try to get into. And the last is most importantly, we try to do what we call digital reward. Let me tell you something, no matter how rich you are, when you are sure you're going to earn something for being part of this bank, you are definitely going to, no matter how small. So we're the first bank in Nigeria to deploy a true digital loyalty platform. For every transaction, there's a loyalty point that comes to you. And it's a tiered model, like what you have in the aviation industry. When you start transacting with us, you are a silver customer. When you become, it tells you how long you need to transact with us to become a gold customer. It tells you how long you need to transact to become a platinum customer. When you're a platinum customer, the service you enjoy is different from a gold customer. So you need to build a digital loyalty. And every reward you earn, you can redeem it in less than 1 second. There's no too much theory where you have to do rocket science. This is how you're going to reward. This is how you're going to redeem your reward. It's very seamless. And we saw a huge transaction. So we did a simple analysis. Before we deployed this new platform, what were the number of our transacting customers versus onboarded customers? But we saw the number went from 25% to about 80%. So before the deployment of the platform, our digital channels, you have about, let's assume in a simple analogy, 100 onboarded, 25% were transacting. But today, we have 80 transacting out of 100. You understand? And the reward system, you must opt in yourself. we had almost a quarter, over 3/3 of the entire onboarded opted in and transacting. So there are some subtle ways you can connect with your customers digitally. You understand, which is very important, which is trying to, I'm going back to what I said. You understand? So when you are sure that, oh, I have this app, I can make it look how I want. I want a dark theme, I want a blue color, I want a green color. This is the theme I want. I want to see my transfer first. I want to see my bills payment second. No, I want to change it. And I'm sure when I transact, I earn something. And I'm sure when I go to the platform, it works. But there's nothing that works 100%. And when it fails, we have a robotics process automation that ensures you get reversed in less than 24 hours. We're the first bank in Nigeria to tell customers, when you do a transaction and it fails and we don't reverse back to you in 24 hours, we pay you 5 times of your fee.
So there is a mechanism as well where you try and ask your clients to actually support and co-create in a way a lot of the services and a lot of the channels that you offer, which is very interesting there, Daniel.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, we are running out of time, but I think I still have one last question for all of you. And Cornel, if I may start with you, I mean, we have a lot of questions here about, is the brick and mortar banking will be extinct? What is the future? From your perspective, and being able to work with a lot of banks in not just in Africa but in other regions of the world, what will be the major trends going forward?
Yeah, so will the branch be extinct? I think in a very relational environment like a lot of Africa is, I don't think it'll ever go fully away. Much like the office, but I do think that there'll be a change. So before, everyone would go into the office 5 days a week. Now most people are looking at a world where it's maybe 3 days at home, 2 days in the office, 4 days at home, 1 day in the office, something like that. I think something very similar in terms of branch usage. It'll decrease, but as long as people want to do something face to face, I think we should give them the option and the opportunity to do that. However, how we then engage, if somebody goes into a physical location, it shouldn't be disconnected from the digital interactions that they've had. I think that's a very key notion, right? Because that's also where you get a disconnect between the sales force that you're using on the ground, who can potentially serve the customer. And that's the second point, which I think is a very important, and that's where technology can really be an enabler to facilitate connecting supply with demand. And that's something that I think banks are really overlooking as a whole, in terms of how they can use their trust to build a platform where they can then act as very good brokers between people who want something to buy and people who want something to sell, whether that's goods, whether that's services, whether that's technology, whatever it might be. There's a lot of opportunities there, and I do see that a lot of banks are missing out on the win-win situation in terms of commercializing some of those assets that they have, opening it up to the market, and doing that on a robust, to Daniel's point, a robust technology platform, because that's a heavy trust element. Yeah, if you go to the branch and it's closed, that's annoying. But if you try and log in twice a day, 3 times a day on your mobile banking or your internet banking and it's down, that's even more infuriating because it should just work. But yeah, that's it from my side.
Fascinating, Cornel. And I think then, João, one last question. Unfortunately, we would stay here another hour, but unfortunately, we cannot do that. So, João, for you, and I guess looking ahead as well, looking at 2021, what are the big projects or are the key investments that Moza has on the pipeline? Are you muted, João?
Sorry about again. I would say that having most of our population, young population, more than 60% of our population are less than 18 years old. I really have to look for the generation Y and Z. So the next investment that we will do it will be the WhatsApp banking. So this is something that we really think. Once again, we are looking our customers, our potential customers, and we are designing our solutions according with our customer. So we think we have a huge segment of people, young people, that needs to work with a platform that they get used to. So WhatsApp banking will be the next investment. The traditional branch, as I mentioned to you one day when we talked before, will be like an hypermarket of the financial hypermarket, where we will put our shelves available for the technology, for the fintech companies to provide the service and products. They will use our shelves, and we will be the seller. They will be the factory, we'll be the seller. That's the way that we see the future. And once again, always putting the woman, the individual, on the middle of our focus. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. I very much like that. So we have the platform, the engagement banking, as well as banking as a service, all that with ecosystem partners to really deliver on hopefully a fantastic experience, a fantastic banking experience for everyone in Mozambique. Very enlightening indeed. And Daniel, over to you now. One last question. Please, if you can tell us any good stuff that Access Bank is working on at the moment, any scoops that we can have that no one else knows. What is there any important things on the pipeline from your side, Daniel?
Okay, that's fine. From where I see it, it's an innovation hub, and I mean, we're doing a lot of things that probably it's still internal, but I'm probably going to let them. I will give you an idea of what we're working. The first thing is
fantastic.
But we're trying to disrupt the payment ecosystem with a new feature we're working with a few partners, and of course, like João. I mean, I hope I pronounced the name rightly. So I will give you an example. Nigeria, with a population of over 200 million, we have about 80 million bankable, or probably 80 million populations with banking relationship. But we have well over 170 million mobile phones. And so why do I need to make my payment with a card when I can use everything on mobile phone? So banks have been busy building mobile banking app. So we are moving from mobile banking to mobile payments. And we want to build our mobile payments without a requirement for the merchants, for the existing ecosystem to change the infrastructure. So how do we come with a solution that works with the existing infrastructure and is going to be mobile payment? So you don't need to use your card. You can do all your payments. So you want to go to the POS terminal, you do your transaction on your mobile app. On the mobile phone. You want to go to the ATM, you do your transaction on the mobile phone. So it's something we are very interested in. That's number one. Number two, the the regulatory just came up with an open banking framework. And I'll probably go back to a comment from Cornel. Banks should want to get to a stage where I can tell my customer, I'm giving you a coupon for your dog to go buy food for your dog. And the only way we can do that is the leveraging on the new open banking policy of the regulatory. And how do we go from our silos and go into the data within the ecosystem, go into the data of the supermarket. I want to know who are the people in the supermarket, who are the people that come into the supermarket, what do they buy? Are they my customers? They are not my customers, they are customers of other banks. Do they transact with a fintech, or where did they go? How can I get to that level where I can talk to you as an Access Bank and say, oh, Pedro, the last time you went to see a movie at social place, and I'm going to pay for your next movie, the next movie at the cinema. So those are the two key things we're working on.
Fantastic. We at African Banker will definitely go and follow up on that new payment platform that you're working on and try and understand if you really are disrupting the market. We'll definitely follow up on that one offline. Thank you very much for this again. Lanre, over to you. I'll give the last words. Perhaps you could share any key initiatives, anything on the pipeline from Equity Bank in 2021.
Okay. I think someone there needs to be, I can hear feedback. All right. So where almost everybody is working around the same thing, like what Joe was talking about, WhatsApp banking. Just that we are not doing WhatsApp banking, we are doing the whole social media. So we already have microservice that just connect to any of the social media and you can do your transaction wherever you click. So for example, if you're an Instagram person, you can do your transaction on Instagram. It's the same microservice that we use. And if you're also someone that wants to do Alexa, you could ask Alexa to make your payment for you. So we've gone to that extent using the same microservices. We are doing Siri as well. So for those who have this ability with their hands and they want to make phone call, they want to do transaction with their voice. We are doing a lot around voice banking. Because we want to be able to do onboarding all the way from the comfort of your home. So one of the best things we could do is to do voice recognition banking, so that instead of you doing maybe facial or phone or printing, that might take some data, we are doing voice recognition. And of course, we are putting up what we call, we have a fintech organization, which is called FinSouth Africa. It does loads of remittance. So what we're doing is also creating what we call a payment gateway, whereby you can have your merchant, whatever you're doing as a merchant, you can use the bank open guy to be able to close out on your sales if you're on Amazon or the rest of that. We have about 500 customers on that platform. And we are doing a lot around machine learning and and artificial intelligence for fraud management and also for personalization banking. So basically, what we say is to ourselves, we look at a person. Let's say, for example, I take Daniel, and I say Daniel from the morning up until the evening. What does it do with his time? So the first thing he does, he doesn't wake up, probably read the newspaper. We want a mobile app to have a newspaper for you to read, right? He goes to the station to pay for his to buy stuff at the grocery store. We want to be able to pay for his parking ticket on there. He wants to watch a film, we want you to watch the preview of the film and pay for the film on there. So we are trying to, a platform, a way whereby almost everything we do, you have us there. And we are doing a lot of interoperability with other fintech and technology companies. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a banking license, right? But we are a digital organization, right? Serving people with banking service. We have a banking service, but we're using digitalization to do it. So in terms of the way we are structured, a typical bank will have the marketing department, sales department. We're changing our structure to meet, the structure of our competitors now, because we don't see ourselves competing with the banks, with the banks in Africa, or we see ourselves competing. The goal is very high. We are not looking at the bank. We are looking at the Apple of this world, the Facebook of this world. We want to be in that realm. So we are doing a lot of investment in that area. And you continue to hear a lot about digitalization in equity bank as we go. Thank you very much for your time. And for the panel, very great talking to you guys. It's been a wonderful session. Thank you.
Fantastic, Lanre. Thank you very much, and we'll definitely follow up on that as well. João, Daniel, Lanre, Cornel, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We at African Bank will continue with this Banking of the Future series in partnership with Backbase. So hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll try and organize a couple more conversations on the future of the banking sector. And thank you very much once again. I thank you very much for everyone that was watching, and I really hope you found it productive and insightful. Thank you very much, everyone.
You're welcome. Asante.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.